I want to start with something which a slightly serious message to young people out there, based on what I read in this chapter, and I've seen stuff like this in other literature. If you're with someone for a long time, your childhood friend, and you're really involved with one another, and you want to grow up and maybe have a family, go out there and do it quickly. Like, don't wait. If things are getting serious in the world, you have to not let the clock click because you never know what's going to happen. Like seriously, like this what happens in this chapter is something that happens consistently. I've seen in other bits of media. It's probably one of the saddest things ever, and it's definitely right there at the top of the worst things the Celestial Dragons have ever done. Right along with the events that we learned about with uh, the Boa sisters. Um, so don't wait for like I see this in literature. Let's get married after the war is over. Let's go on to get married then. We're safe. We can grow a family when things are nice. May never happen. People die. Look how I was listening to a World War One podcast and by Dan Carlin, and it's just so sad about how many people died in World War One in the trenches because the war there strategies made for the commanders not to know how to win the war, and they went on for years longer than it probably would have, and so many people died, so many families broken. Anyways, that's kind of what Oda's going for here. So let's start the chapter. So this chapter starts. No, I'll start a little recap. So we're continuing Oda's Kuma's backstory. I thought we were gonna be a shorter one, but like all these backstories, it's gotta be sad. And so the backstory started in the last chapter. We jumped to 8 years after God Valley with Ginny and Kuma working in Sorbet Kingdom to help people, and it jumped around from 30 years to 25 years and down and down. And we were seeing them having a pretty good life there, helping all the people living in this one side of the city, the kingdom. Meanwhile, the kingdom's under the control of this terrible king, and he is planning because he wants to be he's kissing the ass of the celestial dragons. He wants to keep his kingdom in the world government. I can't blame him for that one, except obviously his motives probably aren't the same as others. But I can't totally blame him for not wanting to get out of because this king probably knows what happens to kingdoms, other places that aren't part of the world government. So he's trying to keep his kingdom in, but his actions are not noble in any way though. He decides at some point to cut the island off so that he don't have to pay as much to the celestial dragons. Also, not terribly a bad idea in a way. It's just too bad when it happened. The way they were starting to treat those other people were terrible, and his regard for the elderly people were also terrible. That in itself, it's almost clever in a way. In a way, I wonder, given the way the world government is here, if I was in his position and I was I was worried about our kingdom falling out of their out of the world government because I couldn't pay the taxes. That might be a little pull the wool over their eyes. I'd probably do myself to say, oh no, don't worry. The pirates raided and killed lots and lots of people on that side of the island. There's not as many people anymore. That's what I would do. But no, they were mistreating the people there. And Kuma got involved at one point. This had happened 22 years ago, I believe it was. And right, wait, let me pull that one up. That one was 22 years ago, I think, right? Yeah, at 25. Yeah, he was age 25, not he. And Kuma stepped in, and he got thrown in jail, as well as Ginny and their other friends. And that's when the 11th Revolutionary Army shows up, and Ginny and Kuma end up joining, and they start fighting the good fight against other kingdoms, overthrowing other kingdoms as they're still called the Freedom Fighters at this point. Also, again, we didn't have some of the other member captains that we would see later. Sabo definitely wasn't in it at this point either when it starts. And then at the end of the chapter, Ginny got kidnapped by somebody unknown at the point. So this worst partially my worst fear happened when they said she got captured. My first thought was the enemy captured her, and if you know anything about the real world of like what's happening, like when people get captured, the women often, in some ways, suffer the worst and suffer first because of the men's. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it. It's just it's sickening to me. To me, some of the worst things people can do to each other is torture and rape. It's just any movies that have that stuff in it. I can't tolerate it. Even if it's just a little bit, it's just like ugh. It's just not for me. So unfortunately, when we start the next chapter, today's chapter, it's called The Birth of Bonnie. The cover art for this one I want to bring up because it's the only good thing. One of the it gets better toward the end, but it's like we see Brooke playing guitar, which is very nice to see. And so this chapter jumps to 2 years later from where the last one ended, and we see the we see we start first by showing yeah, why is it showing that? Okay, because we focus at this point in the beginning at being on, I think, Goa Kingdom at the time when the Great Terminal was being burnt down, and when Sabo, Ace and Luffy thought Sabo died. Damn. When they thought Ace and Sabo died, Ace and Luffy thought Sabo died. It starts with uh, people, radio coming in about requesting backup for Southern and the South Blue, and we see Ivankov. That's funny. Why are they showing Baltigo then showing Ivankov? Because Ivankov, I think, at this point is being shown at Goa Kingdom, and he responds that we can't give you backup. Our hands are full in the Goa Kingdom. And then what Kuma and him are, we saw in a flashback at post Marineford, Kuma, Dragon, and Ivankov are all here together, and they're Kuma says, "No, I'll go back them up. I'll go help." And he's warned by I think it's through Ivankov, like, "Don't be reckless. You don't be reckless. You're pushing yourself too much." I think he's what he's trying to get at, and you've been acting this way too much ever since 2 years ago. And so we get the information here. We go in a brief flashback where where the last chapter ended, and it's like how Ginny's been captured. And what happened is the celestial dragon saw her, or somehow, probably like in a newspaper or something, and had her kidnapped to be made as his bride. And so it shows about someone. So one of the other, it goes back. It's going back and forth. I think a little bit between that flashback and showing the Goa Kingdom one, or some other revolution. We see people celebrating, but then we see this little flashback again with the someone probably on Ginny's crew, who because she was like a commander or captain at that point. She's one of her crew members. We see it through Denden Mushi crying his eyes out, like how the enemy caught them off guard and they couldn't save her and such. I wonder if like Cypher Paul was sent in because her and her crew looked like they were hardened warriors, and they show them in the last chapter. But my guess is they wouldn't be capable of fighting Cypher Pole agents, high level ones. You know, Cypher Pole 9, Cypher Pole 0, especially. So we jump around now to showing some celebration as well here, and the we see Kuma and Dragon talking together, and Kuma's like, yeah, Kuma's really pushing himself now, trying to help people. He's taking the fight to these wherever they go, and pushing himself further. Kind of, so he's acting similar to how he is when he's was taking the pain for the people, but now he's like fighting. He's probably in a way he's fighting to drown his pain. I'm sure this must be heartbreaking for him, and so like often when something bad happens, you see like people. This is the other thing. You just see characters like they go into like depression and they start drinking or something, or you got this version where they fight harder and they really push themselves and not think about the pain. And I've been down that route. I understand a little bit of what he's going through there with something like that. It's like it's when you're in that kind of pain, you sometimes just work hard or do something to focus your energies from feeling that pain. It's rough. So after that bit, showing the information of how Bonnie was captured, and not Bonnie, Ginny was captured and such, we jump to a ship sailing down the ocean, and we see a hooded figure there. And the caption shows about it's been 2 years since Commander Ginny was captured and wedded to a celestial dragon. And she ends up back, I think, at the Sorbet Kingdom at this point, and she contacts the revolutionaries, Ivankov, Kuma, and Dragon at Baltigo. And she this is where it's the saddest part. She contacts them like, "Hey, I made it back," but what happened here is she is disposed of by this celestial dragon because she contracted some kind of disease. Now, this disease is very odd. It's not something real. It's I don't understand where the referencing of this is coming from, but I can't help but think, given the kind of the stuff that these depraved celestial dragons, that this is something she contracted from that guy. So she's like, I wanted to contact you guys one last time and say goodbye. And the other's like, wait, what are you talking about? And Kuma says like, yeah, tell me where you are. I'll come get you. Oh, this is what's the hardest part to read. She continues talking, and Ginny and point out like, you shouldn't come now and see me. I'm horribly sick. I look terrible. I'm on death's door. I can't let you see me like this. And she goes to Dragon. Dragon, please take care of Kuma. He needs someone else to look after him now that I can't do it anymore. And while she's telling him that, Kuma instantly figures out where she is and blasts off to her spot. So he gets there. She went back to the church, and he finds some of the she's there being cared for probably by some of the senior citizens there, and she's like they lead him to her, and we don't get to see her face. I imagine it would have been hard to draw because, and this is just harsh. So she contracted some kind of disease where her body was contracting these jewel-like things, and you can't be exposed to the sun once you have this disease. And what really, but if you go, so apparently, if you go into the sun with this one, it will accelerate your death. So it seems like something that might take you out anyways, but the way she said something before too was like they probably were keeping her in a cave, like they were trying to the celestial dragon was, once she had it, wanted to keep her around still, but he had her in a cave, I think, or something. She said something about the surface. I don't know why I'm saying a cave, but did I say a cave? But she when she was sent off, she was exposed to the sun to some extent here, and so that phone call was the last thing she did. We only get to see her hand, like the back of her hand, next to the Denden Mushi microphone piece, and she when she dies, when you die with this, there's someone voicing this over. I think it's supposed to be one of the other people Kuma's talking to, is about how her body hardened up completely now. And so Kuma's just there, starts crying, and he's starts memorizing all these good times they had together. We see images, especially of mostly of her being a kid, and the time she asked him to marry her. And they intermingle that with him picking her up and holding her body in front of him. And we continue showing that's the other citizens there talking to her. And they said, yeah, she burned up all her time left so she could cross the ocean and come to us. because she wanted to ensure her baby's safety. And we see little Bonnie there. Actually, I forgot to tell you I forgot to when they did show her in the ship. They did have the caption where she says, "Bonnie, we're almost there," or something like that. Is that how she said it? Yeah, we're nearly there, Bonnie. So right away, we have to stop and point something out, though. This is 12 years ago. So we know Bonnie's not the age we've seen her as an adult right away. This is very obvious now. The conjecture I've seen was that she's about 24. No, she's only half that. No, 24 now. Yeah, so people thought she was 22. So at that time, still, I was like 10 years off. So, and also though the senior citizens, we'll go more into that later. But the senior citizens here are crying too. These are obviously people that knew her. The people that came to see Kuma's his congregation, what that be called when he was a priest, and they're all crying their eyes out too. So the next panel here is Kuma's talking to Ginny as he's burying her, and he talks about how he swears he'll take care of Bonnie. And so we get this sad scene of him, holding Bonnie and her crying, and him crying his eyes out over this. And then next panel shows him standing at her grave. So now we start from that sadness though to jumping to him beginning to raise her, and this is where it's kind of upbeat a little bit because now he's working hard to be her father, and he's actually getting advice from the senior citizens. Obviously, most of them must have had children, so he's starting by bottle feeding her, and the baby's just like the size of like in his hand, and he's holding a giant bottle, and they're talking about, oh, you're tilting the bottle too much. And if you're gonna keep her near your bed when you're watching her, make sure she has something sturdy so you don't accidentally crush her. We can't. Then one even says we can't have you smashing her with your massive body. And then other ones are going over, are fawning over, like, oh, she's so cute. She's just like her mother and stuff like that. And Kuma's like taking the advice, like, oh, is this better? Am I holding the bottle correct now? Probably you got to check the temperature. You got to heat up the bottle using. And so even though he gave her a gigantic bottle, she's eating all that up. And he even comments, Kuma does that, oh, you're just like your mother. You're always so hungry. I bet you're just going to be the glutton she was. So he uses that term. He doesn't use that term in like a negative way. He's just saying, yeah, you're obviously always hungry. And so now we kind of doing some little, mostly textless panels of her growing up and him working to take care of her. And like she has one point where she calls him daddy, and then he's a point where he's like crying because of that, and he's like, oh, I thought he was helping her walk there, but no, he's probably just crying because it's her first word. And then we jump to a point a little later when she's probably like 2 to 3 years old, and she's got like a nice little dress on. It looks like, I'm guessing there's something maybe the others are helping. The senior citizens here are obviously being her also foster parents. There's like a half dozen of them in almost every panel here, working with her and raising her with Kuma. And that's a good thing too, because we see one panel where he's still fighting with the Revolutionary Army. It shows a battle scene where he's using his repel abilities against people. And there's other little mingled panels of her like sitting with the old people. And there's another one where she's eating a lot of bread. It's almost like she looks like she's kind of like choking that one, and Kuma's like over her trying to like say, "Go, I know you're hungry, but you gotta chew your food." Yeah, and there's another page. This page is a good one too. There's interesting in the next page, but first they show like more of them working together. Him raising her, like they're doing a bath together, and then there's one where he's again commanding troops in another area. And, oh, and they got her crib. Instead of having a crib, they made an actual cage and put her in that so that it would be sturdy enough that he doesn't doesn't crush her. And he's got his arm up on it, and he's sleeping, and she's sleeping there. Now the next panel that's really interesting is that it shows a scene here where Kuma is training Sabo. So he helped in his formative years of training with their army. That's funny that he never brought that up. That's right, he did know. I always forget that. Because Kuma, that's right, because Sabo was appalled at seeing Kuma being paraded around like a horse at the at the reverie. And so that's right, he would have been training him because he was there at the Goa Kingdom. The dragon encountered Sabo first, but then we saw that Ivankov and Kuma were there. Duh. So he obviously helped Sabo in his training formatively. You see Kuma, yeah, like look like he's trying to use some kind of attack on Sabo to help Sabo, sparring with him. That's the word I'm looking for. And Sabo's got like a staff or something with him. So now we switch to the next panel, and we don't get the exact year of this, I think, but we do get something later. Uh, I'm guessing she's like 4 or 5 at this point, and the two friends come in, and they come into the church one day, and they see that he's boarded up all the windows, and Kuma's just very serious, like get in here and close the door, and look. So what happened is Bonnie is beginning to contract her mother's disease. It's become uh, what's the word for that? There's a word for that when you gain. Like this is something that could happen with I think some STDs. If you're not careful, your baby can have something like that, and you gotta always look for that. Doctors like to know that so they can treat them right away. And this is the kind of idea that they're going for here. Um, and right away, she's got it right below her eye. Doesn't she have that later? Wait a minute, let me pull something up. I want to see. Wait, where's that image of her? Doesn't she? She must have taken that out. Cause she has a piercing there later, under that spot. That's where I think if the image is laying out right, she has a piercing there later. But at this point, she's got that's where the stones are beginning to grow. She's got like 3 of them: a big one, a smaller, and a really small one. And her friends right away, the other two right away, like realize what that is too. They're like, "Oh, is that the thing that Ginny had at the end?" And they go get a doctor. And unfortunately, it seems like some of the doctors don't quite know what this is. One guy even says it's caused by, doesn't even recognize the symptoms because he's like, "Are you sure it's caused by sunlight? Can I take her out and check?" And Kuma immediately says no, uh, and he doesn't want to risk it. Um, and then a second doctor is shown. That that one looks like Granny Neon. Is that that looks just like her, or Gloriosa? I think her name is. They made her look just like her. This one's like, it's not the white lead poisoning, which is the one Law had. I don't know what this is. So now we switch to Kuma back with the Revolutionary Army, and this is where he leaves them. Because he wants to spend his time now making sure he can raise Bonnie devote all his time to raising Bonnie. Is how I should say that. And the other guys, Dragon right away doesn't object, but Ivankov is surprised. But then Kuma explains what's happening. But also, I didn't realize Kuma's wearing glasses now. I didn't think he was in the years ago. Um, and Dragon's like, yeah, it's important to live without regrets. Also, we have contacts with other doctors, so I'll attempt to have some of them come to you and help figure out if we can help Bonnie's condition. So now we do. Oh, right, so she was a little younger there, because now we do jump to 7 years ago when Bonnie is 5, and we see she's the little devil that her mother was, and in this case, she's the one being now. It's partially being similar with having Kuma though. She's being taunted and teased like Kuma was, but she's not afraid to fight back, unlike Kuma as a child. And they're making fun of her because she's stuck inside, and they found out about this, and they're treating her as if she's like a vampire. Um, I even have, oh god, how is that not censored? So Bonnie actually flips off these kids, and Oda actually drew that. I can't believe that was in here. I wonder if that'll be censored out of the anime version. Um, and yeah, so they're in her church. She's living inside the church now because she can't go outside. She chases them out to the door, and then this is where you know they're really treating her like a vampire too. One of them actually pulls out a cross and is holding it at her, and trying to taunt her like, "Oh, you're like a vampire," so and calling her ugly and stuff. and says, "Or you can't come chase us now, haha." But Bonnie doesn't give a shit. She drops kicks. No, that's more like a roundhouse kick. She jumps. She kicks this kid right in the friggin' head, and it's such a good panel the way Oda drew that. He's like, yeah, and everything. He says she just friggin' lays it on him, and so she's beginning to go out after them, and then Kuma sees what's going on, and stops her. And also at this point, Kuma's back wearing his priest outfit, his robes again. Um, um, so Kuma's reminding her, like, you can't go outside. You know you can't do that, so please don't do it. And she's like, oh, I didn't mean it. I just was trying to scare them off. And he's like, yeah, but don't, don't joke about it. It's like, okay, I understand. I'm sorry. I don't want to make you sad. I know how you get when you're sad and worried. So she gets very hot headed, but then she calms herself down when she's around Kuma. So obviously they got a good relationship going on here. And he hugs her and stuff, and he's like, oh, you're such a great kid. I'm so lucky. And she's like, oh, stop it, Dad. And so now she's a little huffing and puffing a little bit, like, oh, these stupid kids. They're always making fun of the stones on my face. Is it really that bad? It's not, and it's not like I asked to be sick. Kuma does a great thing, a dad thing here, like a parenting thing in general. He's like, oh, your jewels, they're just jealous. Don't worry about them. Because they're so pretty, and that really gives Bonnie the boosts her confidence and her spirit, and she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh, I get it. Oh, you think they're that? Do you think they're really pretty? And he's like, oh yeah, of course they are. Okay, this is cute. This is something interesting too. Um, so Bonnie and him are sitting together. Okay, and this is a nice panel too because you see he's got her lots of toys, but it looks mostly like building blocks. But there's also like a teddy bear. Actually, the teddy bear I think has the same hat on he does. No, it must be his hat because he's not wearing it at that moment. I think. Yeah, that's right. It must be his hat. Okay, because of the Kuma reference, meaning bear, right? So now they're having a conversation together, and he wants to know where would you go if we could go on a trip. And she brings up the Sky Islands. And so she has some kind of book here. Was that the Bible she's reading? She's reading a book there. Maybe it's his Bible, it looks like. And she's read about the Sky Islands. And even Kuma's surprised at this. He never read about that. Um, and so he continues. She's like, yeah, it's a great. Here, there are legendary islands up there. And it's also because it's so close to the sun. Maybe we can see Nika. And then so he's told her about that, and she knows he's inspired by Nika. So he's like, see, so it'd be perfect for both of us because you want to see Nika, and it's someplace that sounds fascinating to me. And he's like, oh, that sounds like it does like sound like fun. And he starts doing that dance his dad taught him. He talks about Nika. And so Wakuma, though, he's probably where she's gonna go. Obviously, pass from the thing before he can ever get her out. But he's like, yeah, that sounds like a good adventure. Let's have a celebration there for your 20th birthday. And so then he says to where would you want to go for your 19th birthday? And then she says, oh, Fishman Island sounds fun too. Okay, so now we get to something a little sad though. The doctor finally comes and finds out is that we finally maybe it's one of the ones Dragon found who knows what this disease is, and so this calls it sapphire scale. Oop, monitor turned off, and it talks about how it's incurable, and that even if you do avoid exposure to the sun or moon, it's eventually going to catch up with you. So that's interesting. Now I'm gonna make a quick step. Does this devil fruit she get gonna be something that can help with that? Because like when Law got his fruit, But his is like the is it that be something to do just devil fruits in general? If you could have if one you get a good one, it can help against some kind of disease. That's weird. I mean, people still get diseases who've had it, like Whitebeard and Roger, and I'm still I had this theory I did years ago. This is one of my first videos about how I think that some of these devil fruits could be the problem. People getting diseases could be from those, sometimes from the devil fruits. At least with Roger, because they were very vague about what that was. But with like Whitebeard, it looked like he had some kind of cancer. Uh, so well, something must happen to fix it, because the doctor goes on to say, like he points out that with this kind of disease, I don't think she could will be able to go more than 5 more years of life with this and live, which means she would be 10. But we know this is she's about 12 years old now or over 12. So somehow they found a way to fix it. Maybe the devil fruit is the key. Her devil fruit she's got. What is the name of it? Oda just revealed the name of it. I forget now. Uh, So yeah, so Kuma leaves after talking to the doctor, and it's like this isn't fair. She's gonna be such a spectacular woman. She's going to be grown to be a strong woman. I gotta. Can there really be no cure? Um. Oh God, that's what happens. So Bonnie, when he walks in the door, Bonnie does a little boo and scares him, and she was listening, but she misunderstands the situation. She's like, he's like, "Oh, Bonnie, I thought you were asleep." But she's like, oh, I heard it all. He said it'll be over by my 10th birthday, meaning she'll probably be cured of it. Oh yeah, he doesn't. She doesn't understand. So he's still crying here. She's like, I heard what you guys said. I went, why are you crying? And he's trying to play dumb, like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So he lies to her, and he lies to her and say, "Oh, it was about you. I'm crying because of the illness." He said it's gonna continue until you're 10. And he just saying he lies, he elaborates on the lie by saying, "I was just crying because that's just so Rick. You're gonna have to deal with this for another 5 years at least." And but Bonnie gets hopeful out of this lie, and it's like, "Oh, that means I'll at least be better by then. Then we can go on those trips we've always talked about." And Kumar's like, "Oh shit, I got myself in a corner here." So he just has to continue the lie though. He says, "Of course you'll be fine by then. You'll be." And now he's like, "Oh great, now what am I gonna do?" Um, Man, this is where we reach the end of the chapter now, and now I think this is where we're getting to. Oh, wait, I'll just finish it. So later we get like this one panel with the nighttime. Is that supposed to be a fire going on or something? Yeah, yeah, it's a fire, right? So a fire is starting in where the senior citizens live, and they all come. Some of them come to Kuma and said, "You gotta help us. The King Vikori's back, and he's up to no good like he was when the revolutionaries stopped him 16 years ago. He wants to cut us off, and he's trying to burn all our homes." Um, that's the end of the chapter. Um, so what this looks like is going to happen here. I suspect this is going to be the point where Kuma's going to defeat the king, overthrow him, and the people there are going to nominate him to be the next king of the king of Sorbet. I want to pull up Bonnie's thing too. So Bonnie's fruit has not been shown in this episode, but uh, is this in it? Toshi Nomi. Okay, just age fruit or year though. Okay, interesting. I wonder too. Now something interesting with that. With her having that. With Bonnie having that. Uh, piece in her eye there. I wonder if that is like she took the jewels out once she was cured and put that piercing there because she only has it right there in her. in her in that same spot where the stones are, her right eye. This was a start off as a sad chapter, and then reading this through now, and doing this recording really does make it feel a lot better because that just is fucked up. What happened with Ginny, and the only thing I don't want to be hard on Kuma because of this, but with his ability to fling himself around, I just can't see why he didn't go and look for her right away. Like current, their celestial dragons usually stay in one spot. We know where they are. Everyone knows where they are. Just go in there, sneak in there, and look for her. I just can't fathom how he didn't do that. But that's just me, I guess. I shouldn't. I would have wanted to make a tragedy somehow, and this is how he did it. It's just this is the kind I can't stand. I can't stand. Like it's my least favorite. Not least favorite. Fuck saying it that way. You know what I mean? It's just terrible. It's not a good thing. Like just Ginny was such a good character. Of course, they'd have to kill someone like that, just like they did with Clover and Bellamere and all of Brooke's crew. It's just this type of way to go out. But anyways, so now I wonder how many more chapters we're gonna get. We're moving quite along. With this chapter two, by the way, is covering like the most amount of time I think any backstory has. We started at 38. No, we started earlier. We started 47 years ago when Kuma was a kid, born. Now we're up to 5 years ago. We've jumped 42 years at different sections. We jumped one. How many jumps did we make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 jumps throughout time to get to this point. Bonnie have any tattoos? No, I was just looking at. I was thinking looking at how different she is. Big difference too. I noticed Bonnie likes to have her hair long, and her mom kept it short. Actually, and another thing too, I'm glad this. Another thing that this just reminded me, I was worried when Bonnie got captured by Blackbeard. I for a second thought that they would end up doing something to her, and then the Kainu had her. So now I'm confused. That whole incident still gets all the more confusing. How did she escape from a Kainu of all people? Like she was already shackled up by Blackbeard, so she can't use her devil fruit. And then Kainu could capture her, and I mean, she'd be no match for him either. And then on top of that, even with, if her devil fruit was she probably could have used that on her, but she's already on him, but she's already tied up. I'm still suspicious there, like something. I don't know if I brought this up. I was gonna do a video on this when Bonnie's a couple months back, like, but I don't think there's not enough there to make a whole video out of really. But is Bonnie working for Kainu? Does she like let her off on the contingent, like you'll work for me and spy somehow? Because with her ability to turn into other people her age, she can use that almost like disguise it. She can't probably change her. She can't change how she looks, but like Bon Clay or Davon can. But it's effective against if people don't know who she about her and her ability. She did the old lady thing at the Reverie, and just makes me very suspicious of that. How she couldn't have escaped and had to have made some kind of deal like that. Basically. So now we got another disease, the rival Law. This thing. Now this is a sad thing too. She's one of the worst generation with Law, and now we find out just like him, she had this terrible disease at one time. But now this thing too, that we got to talk about her age too. So she obviously must have happened here is then we can surmise now that after Kuma becomes king, this is going to somehow draw the attention to the world government because this kingdom's part of the world government now. He's going to overthrow them. The thing too though is the revolutionary overthrew this island. I'm surprised this island wasn't like I wonder who they installed as a king 16 years ago before this point. So that's 22 years ago. Who got installed as a king, and then I'm surprised the world government didn't act right away. Maybe they just like want to keep their hands out of it. Then because they're trying to still assess how to deal with dragon and such at that time. But putting that aside, they said Bakuri's coming back. So it's kind of like what happened with the guy at Drum Island King, that twerp. And so he's coming back to take over. And so we know Kuma's going to become the king of Sorbet. So how anything Bakuri, any troops Bakuri has probably won't be a match for Kuma now. He knows how to use his fruit. He's battle hardened now. They got him 20. They got him that time 16 years ago. That I'm sure it's not gonna can't have it now, and he can just call his friends in again. But the point here is he'll become the king. So this has to be the point. So within the last 5 years, where the Gorosei are going to take notice of this, and they'll know he's that buccaneer slave that they had. So let's say this is 30. What have been 33 years ago. Yeah, 33 years ago before this point. They're like this. That looks straight like that buccaneer slave, and that's what they'll probably. I wonder if they do a deal with him because he started turning himself into a cyborg with Vegapunk. Maybe he did that to get that devil fruit and use it to give it to Bonnie. So now this opens up the whole picture we've been trying to figure out with him, especially when Jinbei pointed out the that he was a tyrant that mistreated his citizens. Now we know that had to be something that was framed upon him shortly after this, after he becomes king, that the government wants him back. Like it's that kind of stupid they want him. Like okay, it makes sense and it doesn't. Like what he doesn't have any like monetary or like a value to him, but you know it's like the pride of sort. Like you are a slave, you escape. We can't let that happen. I mean, he's not talking about it. I don't even think Ginny knew he was a buccaneer either. Oh, that's the other thing. She's not a buccaneer then. Her parent, her other parent was a celestial dragon, or must have been, unless they were. Oh God, there's so many other things you could think of. It's likely her father is a celestial dragon. She's not the buccaneer. But now we got the truth of that too. That's something else to go over. We thought so, but no. We thought so because she stated it. He's obviously that's the other thing. That's it too. She just went into that memory bubble, so now she knows the truth. That's another thing that's probably for her whole upbringing. He's given her. She's realized it's turned upside down. Also, I must compliment how well she's kind of handling this in the present. Because they would talk about how you stop crying and stuff. I think Luffy had said that. It's like she's still actually 12 years old, and is now having to deal with all the stuff that for the last her formative not formative years. She's still young. Everything she learned from her father years ago is wrong. So now she's having to deal with that. Also, I'm just thinking, where would she stand? No, of course. I'm just trying to think of this timeline when Kuma probably turns himself over to the government and then becomes a warlord. I'm wondering if she was moved back to stay with the elderly people. She must have. Then at some point she decides to go out and find him. That'll be very interesting if they'll piece any of that together. I'm sure they're going to get into the part at least where he becomes king, but then the government finds him. I feel like that's where the flashback here will end about that point, so that we can piece together that point where Bonnie sets out to sea to find him 2 years ago, and then made a name for herself as a pirate and one of the worst generation. Wasn't she like the lowest one? Oh no, she was second. I think her bounty was actually, yeah, a little higher than even Capone's. So I'm gonna leave that there for today, and yeah, I should try to do another video on this, but I'm gonna like piece together the other stuff we saw her now. So did we see much of? We really don't have much else though. Devil fruit. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's a paramecia type. Oh yeah, and that thing too. I wonder if she'll like apologize to Vegapunk now. That's the thing too. One last thing. Kuma wanted to do this, and he made Vegapunk promise not to tell her. I'm still a little confused by that bit. That would be something I want to go over at a later time. Like, why did he think that she wouldn't be able to handle this information, or what did he want to hide from her? Oh wait, her body's now 320. Okay. Oh wow, so she must have got out. So she, even if she isn't working for Kuma, say she is just a, she did escape from Kainu. Excuse me. She went out there and started causing havoc against Summer because now her bounty is over doubled what it was 2 years ago. Hmm. All right. Anyways, that'll be it for today.